I finally figured out how to celebrate some of these small things in my life, whether it was just like finishing a great dinner service from a pop-up, or getting a new client for the private dining business, or just figuring out a dish. And when I met Sarah, she really helped teach me how to celebrate these small things. Sometimes you're just so in the go, go, go of working, and that you forget that like this stuff is special. And I'm finally realizing that and taking a moment to step back and just appreciate all the hard work that I've put in. She's really helped me realize the kind of life balance that I want to have, and help me question myself in what it is as a chef. There is this trajectory that is stereotypical of most chefs, and you work in a restaurant, you be somebody's line cook, and you slave away, you become a sous chef, and you slave away even more, and maybe you become a chef de cuisine for someone, and then you go off and open up your own restaurant. And that path was just not for me.
I think Aaron fits very nicely into the Pacific Northwest food scene because he's doing something that most chefs aren't doing, and that is he's not focusing on a restaurant. He is focusing on specifically cooking for people and making really good food. I think the fact that he's not super amped up and focused on opening a brick and mortar, that he's literally just cooking, I think that right there separates him from a lot of people. And I think the food he's making and sort of this artistic passion that he has, I mean, he's a great fit for the Pacific Northwest food scene.
I was just enthralled by the diversity of the Pacific Northwest. When you go to a farmer's market in the late spring, early summer, you can really see how bountiful it is here. And if you just go and walk through Pike's Market, you'll see like how crazy this area is with the amount of wild mushrooms and seafood and everything that it yields. For a cook, you couldn't hope for more. The farmers markets themselves here in Seattle are really amazing. They're a great litmus test for what's going on, and the people who work them are just fantastic. They're a really great way to understand what's actually happening in this area and to what is actually growing. It's really amazing, and they're excited, so it's so easy, especially as a cook, to see these ingredients that they're passionate about and then want to include those on your menu in some way. It is interesting, especially when you're at the meetup of spring and summer and you have so much going on, to try to highlight it sometimes. You really want to give them justice to showcase what they have the best way possible. The Pacific Northwest now has become this kind of treasure trove of ingredients, and during each season of the year, and especially once spring starts, you're never bored. There's such a transition of ingredients and hard stops with certain ones where you have to be ready to roll into the next ingredients. So I'm able to constantly create new menus and reinvigorate my own cooking and be inspired by what's next and be excited by flavor memories that I've had from either prior menus or things that I've eaten in the past. One of my earliest memories would be eating a strawberry in my parents' garden. My parents in Montana, we had this absolutely beautiful garden, and we would pick all kinds of fresh vegetables and fruits from it. Typically, we're growing strawberries and raspberries.
We had a huge strawberry patch, and it was great because it was leveled. So you start up on the top, and then the runners would come down level to level to level. But it made a perfect place to sit down. Perfect place to sit in the garden and just munch away on strawberries.
When I think of Aaron, I think of that time there and the kind of things that, you know, he was a child that would eat most everything, right?
One thing too is that the food was so seasonal in Montana. You know, we only had about 3 months of really growing good vegetables. So we'd go all winter without anything in the yard but snow. And then all of a sudden in spring, those beautiful strawberries would start to come up. And it was irresistible, irresistible. Once he really got going on it, I mean, it was a whole crop could disappear in one afternoon.
And I can remember my mom giving me this beautifully ripe strawberry, and I was probably just about 4 years old. And I remember absolutely loving every bit of that and being excited enough to go back to grab a second, not knowing that you need to check your berries and biting into it and realizing it was the most rotten strawberry I'd ever tried in my entire life. So I started playing music when I was probably about 11 years old and just fell in love with it. I loved playing the drums. I loved listening to them, and so at 14 I got my first drum set. I was in band all through high school and then went to college originally to be a music major. I was there, I was practicing one night in the bottom of a dormitory, and this guy walked in and was like, "What are you doing?" And he's like, "You should come over and jam with us." Something happened, and all of a sudden we birthed Your Divine Tragedy. It was a little Shakespearean play on words. We had this amazing run of playing so many shows. We started in Missoula, Montana, where we all met going to college, and then started to tour a bit, and then realized that we needed to move to a bigger market. So we ended up going to Seattle and moving to Seattle to really get a better chance at breaking out of it, to get more attention on us. And the city really took us. It was amazing what happened. We started playing a few shows and people liked the kind of melodic hard rock that we played, and we ended up selling out places like the Showbox Market and Numos and playing huge shows for thousands of people. And we were cutting records down in LA and doing all these wild things that as like an 18-year-old, 17-year-old, I could have like only really dreamt of. I was living out this kind of rock star fantasy that I had wanted.
Well, it turns out the gutter he was left in changed into his home, his stronghold. He found out.
We had been grinding on the road for months. There had even been a couple years of on and off touring, and we had been on this long 4-month tour. But I could definitely tell that it was a real strain on me, that grind was starting to get to me. It was really sad, honestly. This thing that I had absolutely loved and dreamt of as a kid was starting to become something that I wanted to have nothing a part of. There were practices that I didn't want to be at. There were all of these opportunities that we had that I would do, but with a lot of lackluster. Coincidentally, at the same time, our lead singer, one of my very best friends, ended up having a very severe back injury. It was really wild, the timing of me losing my passion for this industry and music in general, and Todd being hurt, and then us having to take this break. We realized that it was time to call it quits. And so I needed something in my life, and I'd been knowing that for a while. And I needed to find on my own what that would be. So I started this pursuit of trying to find out what I wanted to do next. And frankly, I just went back to work at corporate America, which was surprisingly like the last thing that you would think someone would want to do if they were searching for something, but I didn't know what else to do. So I just figured I'd go back to the place I'd worked at for years, just make money. And during that process, I realized how empty of a life I had. And I moved into a new apartment with my best friend and walked into this kitchen and just had this revelation that maybe cooking. I'd worked in the restaurant industry for 6 years as a kid, just up until college, and was like, maybe there's something to this. My whole family on my mom's side has worked in the industry in some way. My uncle is this amazing chef.
And he went down to Santa Rosa to work with my brother Scott, who has been a professional chef for 40 years. And they went to do a I think it was a tomato festival, but they were serving thousands and thousands of people. So it was quite an experience for Aaron, who was relatively inexperienced at that time and hadn't worked beyond the small cafes in our area, and then a few places out here, but he hadn't done a lot of restaurant work. And Scott really showed him a lot of different ways of working around a crowd that is literally thousands of people. So I know Scott had quite an influence on Aaron.
And so I went down, he kicked my ass. I worked baker's hours and worked nights and worked events and went out with them and tried to keep up, which I thought that, rock stars could keep up with chefs, but I think actually chefs can outdo rock stars when it comes to long days and long hours. I ended up really falling in love with this craft and just the excitement of being on the line and this dedication of craft. And then I realized that there's this competitiveness both with yourself and the people around you. Like, I want to one-up you and see if I can roll more brioche rolls than you can in an hour, or I can stand up longer than you. And it became this test, even just against myself. So I came back to Seattle, enrolled in culinary school to get myself plugged in, because for me, at the age I was at, I wanted kind of a direct path to how do I get to fine dining. I was working for some other chefs and absolutely loved what I was doing, but I was feeling a need for my own expression. And I had this opportunity to start doing small dinners in coordination with a wine cellar.
The dining experience that Aaron offers is something that is just not available in the Lake Chelan Wine Valley. And it kind of fills a need or fills a want or a desire for food that is at a much higher level and is so expertly paired with wine. It's a different dining experience. We are Washington Wine. We're Washington winemakers. We work with fruit from all over the state.
How big will they get, or how big do you want them to get before you think about harvesting them?
Well, with this berry, we're not exactly sure what the cluster is going to look like because this is our first harvest off of them.
They were a little bit, last year when we found some, they were a little bit looser clusters.
Right.
Kind of like the claret. Everything's just kind of loose. They're not like little tight little clusters.
Yeah, these grapes will maybe get like 25% bigger, but the next thing that we're going to look for that happens is a process called verasion, where the skins start to get thinner and the skins become more translucent. At that point, the grapes really start accumulating sugars. Right now they're really hard and have a lot of acid. So.
We love working with Aaron so much, like it doesn't make sense for us to even try working with anyone else. Like he's our chef.
It kind of started to take on a life of its own, and then I was like seeing this opportunity of growing it into something. So from there I started trying to find spaces where we could hold the pop-up, and it was really tough at first to find somebody who's going to be willing to loan you their space, take care of their baby when they're not there. I just wanted the opportunity, just a chance.
About Aaron and how I would categorize him is like one of the most eager, hardworking chefs I know. Like he's willing to do anything to be involved with something cool. He says yes to anything I throw at him, whether it's like, hey, I know somebody who's looking for a private chef, or I'm thinking of doing this. He wants to be involved. He wants to be involved in cool projects that just sort of get his name out there and that he knows he's gonna have fun doing. And I have never met a more eager chef.
We started running the pop-up and it just went by, it was just Chef Aaron Tekulve basically. In fact, at that time I don't even think I was calling myself chef yet, because I just didn't feel that I deserved that title, because I didn't feel I'd really mastered anything yet at all. Still working on that to this day. So the pop-up really became an opportunity to showcase the kind of creativity I wanted, and in the last few years it's really taken on this whole new life where I've really discovered the cuisine that I love to cook. And that was kind of the moment that it became named Surrell, that it actually took on a life.
The name Surrell comes from my side of the family, women 6 generations back. It was my great-great-great-grandmother's last name, and then it became the middle name to women as the generations passed. My mother is a fantastic cook, and she inspired my cooking. And then I think both my mother's cooking and my cooking have inspired Aaron. And it's been an honor to have Surrell be the name he's chosen.
My grandmother and my mother being two of the very most influential people in my cooking career and in my life. And so as an homage to them, I decided to name my business in thought of them, just to pay them the respect for influencing me so much in my life.
I think Surrell kind of encompasses so much more than even just the women in his family. I think it's a representation of how Aaron feels about family. I think it's how he feels about loyalty, how he feels about also just paying things forward. The women in his family not only raised him, but nourished him in food and life, and Surrell kind of encompasses all of that. It's taking care of others like they took care of him. It's kind of educating people like they educated him. It's these amazing, strong women that were role models to him, and him putting that same power out into the world. I think Surrell encompasses all of that.
And then it just kind of sprung on me how perfect that name would encapsulate myself, and also my respect for my roots and my family and how close I am to them. And so it's kind of an all-encompassing name. It helps kind of tell the story of myself and who I'm close to and who inspires me. Late last year, we were awarded Best Pop-Up Restaurant in Seattle by Reader's Choice in Seattle Magazine. And I was a little dumbstruck, honestly. In fact, it was someone commenting on my social media that let me know that we were even nominated in the first place to be voted on. And so it was like a scramble to let everyone know. And then when we won, again, it was someone else who was letting us know. And it was just this crazy moment. It was a real affirmation of all this hard work that we have been striving for. Recognition publicly like that for what we're doing, we need that as chefs. I need that. It helps me be more inspired to continue with this experience, to push myself to create an even better atmosphere for those who are coming. It's also a huge thank you to all the people who've worked with me. I have an amazing staff. I have this great lineup of people who dedicate themselves.
I think his being voted Best Pop-Up by Seattle Magazine is well deserved. And I also think that not only is it deserved because he works incredibly hard on his business. And unlike a lot of other pop-ups, his pop-up, his business, I don't want to keep calling it a pop-up, it is a business, it is a dinner series. A pop-up sort of implies that you never know where this dinner is going to take place, but Aaron has built so many relationships in the city. You know where his pop-ups are going to go. They're kind of, within like a handful of businesses that he has these great relationships with. I think it also speaks to his following. Think of all the people who voted for him as Seattle's Best Pop-Up. Seattle Magazine does not make that decision. It's people. People get to vote. It is user-generated. So the fact that people voted him as the best pop-up, that speaks highly of who his clientele is. They love him and they believe in him, and he's got a huge following. So, how great is that?
I wasn't surprised, obviously. I always knew he was the best pop-up in Seattle. But that was one of those moments, again, that I thought, this is a huge thing. And it was one of the first times that I saw Aaron celebrate too. It was the first time I had ever seen him get truly excited, and I think it was kind of one of those times in our lives that I had sort of been pushing that towards him, like, we need to celebrate. And we were in a car, we had just landed in Texas, actually gonna see my family. And I just heard him go, and he had read the news that he had won Best Pop-Up, and he was so excited. It was one of the first moments that I truly saw that.
So to win this award and to be recognized in that way was just such a compliment to myself, and makes me feel like I have a place as a chef. I won't lie, there've been plenty of times in my career where I have suffered from some imposter syndrome. It hasn't even been, honestly, up until the last couple years that I've been even kind of comfortable being called a chef. I let other people call me that, but to call myself that is tough. When I see these other people around me, I want to make sure that I'm doing my very best to respect them by working on my craft in the best way possible, by using the best ingredients and giving the best experience for my diners. So when we won this, it also was affirmation for our diners who come and support us, that they are going to somewhere that deserves to be celebrated. And that's just a crazy thing to think about, that we deserve to be celebrated in some way. It was a really fantastic moment, and it was again one of these times that I had to just stand back and just absorb it and take in the fact that I had done a good job. That for now, the Surrell Pop-Up is being recognized as being a dining destination for people to seek out.
for as long as I can remember, I've always been the one cooking and bringing everybody together. So this is not uncommon. There's something unique about cooking like this where it's non-transactional. This is about celebration of friendship. This is about me saying thank you for being my friends through my life. And so there's a sincerity in this that would never be at a restaurant. A much deeper thank you to those who support me in my life and also those who are just always there for me. And so celebrating this is a much bigger thing than any restaurant. That I feel more passion sometimes in doing things like this. It's a special thing for me to be able to be the one to host. I mean, this, before I even decided to be a chef, before I even started to follow this path, I was doing this long ago with Sunday suppers with friends around watching Family Guy or whatever it would be. To bring everybody together, from the last friends that I've had for almost 25 years up until recent friends, it's a special thing. It doesn't hurt that I'm cooking a pig. It helps get everybody out.